Eschol Grapes, Acts of Parliament. Second Parliament, Act 5 of King Charles, anent the ratification of the Covenant and the Assembly supplication, Act of Council and Act of Assembly concerning the Covenant, June 11th, 1640. The Estates of Parliament presently convened by His Majesty's special authority, considering the supplication of the General Assembly at Edinburgh the 12th of August, 1639, to His Majesty's High Commissioner and the Lords of His Majesty's Honourable Privy Council, and the Act of the Council the 30th of August, 1639, containing the answer of the said supplication and the Act of the said General Assembly ordaining, by their ecclesiastic constitution, the subscription of the Confession of Faith and Covenant, mentioned in their supplication, and withal having supplicated His Majesty to ratify and enjoin the Famen by his royal authority under all civil pains, as tending to the glory of God, and preservation of religion, the King's Majesty's honour, and the perfect peace of his Kirk and kingdom, to ratify and approve the said supplication, Act of Council, and Act of Assembly, and conform thereto, ordains and commands the said confession and covenant to be subscribed by all His Majesty's subjects, of what rank and quality soever, under all civil pains, and ordains the said supplication, Act of Council, and Act of the Assembly, with the whole confession and covenant itself, to be inserted and registered in the Acts and Books of Parliament, and also ordains the Famen, to be presented at entry of every Parliament, and before they proceed to any other act, that the same be publicly read and sworn by the whole members of Parliament claiming voice therein. Otherwise the refusers to subscribe and swear the same shall have no place nor voice in Parliament. And such like ordains all judges, magistrates, or other officers of whatsoever place, rank, or quality, and ministers at their entry, to swear and subscribe the Famen covenant, whereof, and of the said supplication, Act of Council, and Act of the Assembly, the tenor follows, etc. Parliament 3rd of King Charles, Act 5th, at Edinburgh, October 12th, 1643. The Commissioners of the Convention of Estates, having received from the Commissioners of the General Assembly the Solemn League and Covenant above mentioned, approved and solemnly sworn and subscribed in the Kingdom of England, and having taken the same to their serious consideration, to unanimously and cheerfully receive and embrace it as agreeing with that draft approved by the late Convention of Estates and General Assembly, and therefore ordains the same to be, with all religious solemnities, sworn and subscribed by all His Majesty's subjects of this kingdom, and that unto the pain to such as shall postpone or refuse, to be esteemed and punished as enemies to religion, His Majesty's honour and peace of these kingdoms, and to have their goods and rents confiscated for the use of the public, and that they shall not brook nor enjoy any benefit, place, nor office within this kingdom, and also ordains all sheriffs, stewards, and others His Majesty's magistrates in burgh and land, and committees in the several shires, to be assisting to ministers and presbyteries in procuring real obedience hereto, and that with all diligence to make report unto the Committee of Estates of the names of all such persons as shall postpone or refuse, to the effect course may be taken with them, as aforesaid, and that they may be cited to answer to the next Parliament as enemies to religion, king, and kingdoms, and to receive what further punishment His Majesty and Parliament shall inflict upon them, and further ordains these presents to be printed with the former Act of the Estates, and published at the market crosses of the head boroughs of this kingdom, wherethrough none pretend ignorance of the same. Second Parliament, King Charles, Act 15, anent securing of the covenant, religion, and peace of the kingdom, February 7th, 1649. The Estates of Parliament, taking to their most serious consideration the unhappy differences between their late sovereign and these kingdoms, caused by the evil counsels about him unto the great prejudice of religion and long disturbance of the peace of those kingdoms, as likewise the manifold acts of Parliament and fundamental constitution of this kingdom, anent the king's oath as coronation, which, judging it necessary, that the prince and the people be of one perfect religion, appointeth, that all kings and princes who shall reign or bear rule over this realm shall at their coronation, or receipt of their princely authority, solemnly swear to observe in their own persons and to preserve the religion as it is presently established and professed, and rule the people, committed to their charge, according to the will of God revealed in His Word, and the lovable constitutions received within this kingdom, and do sundry other things which are more fully expressed therein. And withal pondering their manifold solemn obligations to endeavour the securing of religion and covenant, before and above all worldly interests. Therefore they do enact, ordain, and declare that before the King's Majesty who now is, or any of his successors, shall be admitted to the exercise of his royal power, he shall by and attore the foresaid oath, assure and declare by his solemn oath, under his hand and seal, his allowance of the national covenant and the solemn leaguing covenant, and obligation to prosecute the ends thereof in his station and calling, and that he shall for himself and his successors consent and agree to acts of Parliament enjoining the solemn leaguing covenant and fully establishing Presbyterian government, the directory of worship, the confession of faith, and catechisms, as they are approved by the General Assembly of this Kirk and Parliament of this kingdom, in all his Majesty's dominions, that he shall observe these in his practice and family, and that he shall never make opposition to any of these, or endeavor any change thereof. It is also declared, enacted, and ordained that before the King, who now is to be admitted to the exercise of his royal power, he shall leave all counsel and counsellors prejudicial to religion, and the national covenant, and to the solemn leaguing covenant, and give satisfaction to the Parliament of his kingdom, as it is now constituted, in what further shall be found necessary for the settling of a happy and durable peace, preservation of the union between the kingdoms, and for the good of the crown, and for his own honor and happiness, and shall consent and agree that all matters civil be determined by the parliaments of this kingdom, and all ecclesiastic matters by the General Assembly of this Kirk. For the which ends the Estates of Parliament are resolved to make their humble and earnest addresses to His Majesty, and all possible expedition, all which they find themselves bound to prosecute, and resolves not to recede therefrom, but to see the same really performed. Like as the Estates of Parliament discharges all the lieges and subjects of this kingdom, to procure or receive from His Majesty any commissions, patents, honors, offices, or gifts whatsoever, until His Majesty give satisfaction, as said is, under the pain of being censured in their persons and estates, as the Parliament, or any having power from them, shall judge sitting. And if any such commissions, patents, honors, offices, or gifts shall be procured or received by any of the subjects of this kingdom, before such satisfaction, the Parliament declares and ordains all such commissions, patents, honors, offices, or gifts that shall follow thereupon to be void and null. Parliament Second, Session Second, Act 26, for keeping the judicatories and places of trust free of corruption, February 17, 1649. The Estates of Parliament, taking into consideration that the Lord our God requires that such as bear charge among his people should be able men, fearing God, and hating covetousness, and dealing truly, and that many of the evils of sin and punishment under which the land groans have come to pass, because hitherto there hath not been sufficiently provided and cared for. And being sensible of the great obligation that lies upon them by the national covenant, and by the solemn leaguing covenant, and by many deliverances and mercies from God, and by the solemn engagement unto duties to advance religion and righteousness in the land, and fill places of power and trust with men of approved integrity, and of a blameless and Christian conversation, and being convinced in their consciences that there cannot be a more effectual way for bearing down of malignants and suppressing of profanity and iniquity and ungodliness, and rendering all the laws already made, and hereafter to be made, forceful and effectual for the honor of God, the advancing of religion and righteousness, and the good of the lieges, then that all the judicatories of the kingdom consist of, and places of power and public trust be filled with able and honest men, do therefore statute and ordain that no person that is malignant and disaffected to the present work of reformation and covenants, and against whom there is just cause of exception, or just ground of jealousy because of their disaffection, nor any person given to drunkenness, swearing, uncleanness, or any other scandalous offense, shall hereafter be chosen to be judge, or any officer of state, or magistrate, or councillor in burgh, clerks or deacons of crafts, or any officer of an army belonging to the kingdom, or employed in any place of public power or trust within this kingdom, and that all such as shall be chosen to be judges, officers of state, officers of the army, magistrates, councillors in burghs, clerks, deacons of crafts, or employed in any place of power and trust in this kingdom, shall not only be able men, but also shall be men of known affections unto and approved in integrity and fidelity in the cause of God, and of a blameless and Christian conversation. And it is statute and ordained that if any malignant or scandalous person shall be chosen to be judges, officers, or employed in any of places aforesaid, or other places of power and trust, or if after they, being called to be judges or officers and employed in places of power and trust, they shall make defection to the malignancy, it is aforesaid to give themselves to scandalous offenses one or more, that this, their malignancy and profanity, conjunctly, or either of them severally, being proved against them, shall be a sufficient cause to the Parliament of this kingdom, or any having power from them, for that effect, to keep back, remove, or suspend these persons from the places of power and trust, to which they are called, or in which they are employed, as faults and crimes shall be found to deserve. But prejudice always to all of the judicatories and persons having right by the laws of his kingdom thereto, to purge and fill all offices, places of power and trust within their respective powers, requiring and ordaining to do the same, as they will answer thereupon to the Parliament, or any having power from them in that behalf. Second Parliament of King Charles and Session 3, Act 11, Act for Purging the Army, June 21st, 1649. The Estates of Parliament, considering the manifold evils both of sin and punishment wherewith this land hath been affected, by reason of the malignant insolencies and profanity of many in our armies, and calling to mind that they have lately made a solemn confession and acknowledgment unto God thereof as one of the public sins of the land, and that they have engaged themselves for purging of judicatories and armies, and entrusting and employing none but such as are of known good affection, and to the effect that none be suffered to abide in the army who are of a profane, malignant, and scandalous carriage, having therefore, according to their vows, and for removing and preventing all dangers or inconveniences they may fall out thereby, and for remedying and relieving the exorbitant burdens and oppressions of the country, because of such men's insolences, thought necessary to grant power and commission to some well-affected persons in several shires, for visiting the troops and companies quartering therein, and for ordaining and directing the cashiering or otherwise punishing of them, as they after trial shall find their miscarriage to deserve. And for that effect the Estates of Parliament grants commission, warrant, and power to visit the troops and companies lying within the shire of blank, and receive all complaints against them, to take all manner of trial of their carriage by information or examination of the country people with whom they have been quartered, or other honest persons of the shire, or officers or soldiers in these troops, either upon their oaths, or otherwise as they shall think fit, and to give up to the chief officer upon the place of, the list of such officers and soldiers as they find guilty of any of the faults contained in the instructions given to them by this present Parliament, and that said the officer forthwith secure their horses and arms, and remove them out of the army, or punish them otherwise as they shall deserve, and, in case the said commissioners shall upon pregnant presumption think fit before trial, that any officer or soldier be secured until they be tried, that the chief officer upon the place, upon the desire of the said commissioners, shall accordingly secure the said persons with their horses and arms.